Hello everyone, welcome to our Facebook Live video. Sitting next to me is former University of Kentucky middle blocker, Kaz Brown. I'm David Portney, I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at the American Volleyball Coaches Association. Kaz, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So, if you didn't follow volleyball that closely over the last 4 years, or maybe living under a volleyball rock, Kaz Brown was one of the best middle blockers over the last 4 years around the country. Just a few accolades here. She broke the career rally scoring program record in total blocks, block assists, and solo blocks. She had 1,000 career kills and hit 408 last season, which ranked 12th in the nation. She's a three-time ABCA All-Region honoree. Have you had a chance to look back? I know summer's here, summer workouts are starting to come for Kentucky that you're not going to really be a part of anymore. So have you had a chance to reflect and look back at your 4 years at Kentucky?
Yeah, I have a little bit. It's a little different. I think the first time I really realized that I was done was when Kentucky was playing Louisville in the spring match, and I was watching from the stands, which was obviously really different for me. I haven't done that since I was a recruit. So I think that was kind of my first real moment of realizing I'm done with this. But I have had a chance to reflect a little bit, and I'm really happy with the way things ended for us and all the history we were able to make as a program this season.
Yeah, it was quite a run. I mean, made it all the way to the quarterfinals right here at Memorial Coliseum. I was able to attend a couple of huge crowds, fun crowds. What is it like playing in Lexington, Kentucky, which is, the Kentucky basketball teams, men's and women's, are both very popular. Many people look at Kentucky and Lexington as a basketball town. So what was it like seeing that support from an historically basketball city?
It was huge for us. I think it said a lot about the way volleyball has grown in the past couple years. That was something for me when I originally committed to Kentucky, that I really wanted to see Memorial Coliseum fill up with fans, and I think we achieved that this season, definitely. But like you said, Lexington is primarily a basketball community, so to see people buy into what we were doing was such a gratifying feeling.
And also, if you have any questions for Kaz, leave them in the comments below. I'm kind of tracking on the questions and comments and seeing if they're Kaz might answer them, so keep commenting, and even if she can't get to it live, maybe we can get her to answer them later. But on a personal level, because of the way the season ended, it was such a tremendous run in the tournament. What were some of your personal highlights in your 4 years?
I think this season definitely beating Florida at home when they were number one. That was huge for us. It meant a lot to us. Obviously, Florida is extremely dominant, not just in the SEC, but in the country. So to get a win against them on their home floor when they were ranked number one was huge for us. And it meant a lot to us just because it feels like it's always us and Florida kind of battling for that number one spot in the conference. So I think that gave us kind of the energy that we needed to move forward in the season.
Did it give you the confidence that you thought you might have needed?
Definitely. I think it gave us all the confidence, especially the young players. We did have a really young team. We had a lot of freshmen starting for us. So I think for them especially to get that win under their belt did a lot for us as far as confidence goes.
Now, kind of going back to that tournament run, as a senior, what is it like to end your college career on a note like that?
It was amazing. Obviously, Final Four was the goal, and we'd like to have won it all. But I think to lose to the eventual national champion is, you can't. Exactly. They're a great program. They were a great team. It was just really fun to, my last game to be a home game and to play in the Elite Eight against such a great team and have such great fans. I don't think it could have ended any better for me personally.
Yeah, and as you said, as a senior, and then not ending it any better as you did, as you're able to kind of look back in your 4 years, does the senior year kind of usually trump all of the other seasons because of how it ended? Or how can you look back at the other 3 years because of how well the fourth year went?
Yeah, my senior season was definitely my favorite, just because the past 3 seasons we were a really good team, but we didn't execute the way that we wanted to throughout the tournament. So I think this year to finally, have all of our hard work be shown on a national level was extremely rewarding for all of us.
So now we can merge into the actual, you and your ability to play volleyball at such a high level. from my friends who maybe aren't volleyball specific, say, hey, check out Kaz Brown, Rachel Kramer, these elite middle blockers. I said, well, they're tall, obviously.
Right.
It's like, well, okay, it's more than just being tall. So what makes a good middle blocker?
I think there's a lot of qualities that make a good middle blocker. Obviously, size is a huge advantage, but that's not everything in blocking, and I think that's a common misconception for people who don't play volleyball or watch it as much. But I think lateral movement is definitely huge, so moving to your left and right. Reading the setter is really big. So I think one thing that we focus on at Kentucky is just slowing the game down. So softening your eyes, focusing on your hitter, but also the setter, reading the setter's hands, and just being able to make quick moves, and also, if you get a late start, make really good recovery moves.
So you talk about lateral agility. Is that something the strength and conditioning staff works on with you and your team? How much of that is involved in the whole diet and nutrition, speed? How much of that is training from your strength and conditioning?
Oh, that's huge. We do a lot of stuff with our strength and conditioning coaches. We do lots of lateral movements, lots of jumping, lots of cone footwork, just making sure that our first step is really fast and our footwork is tight and clean.
And you talked about reading the setter as well. Are you able to kind of go a little deeper into that? What exactly are you looking for in at your opponent's setter?
So some setters have certain tells when they're going to set a certain hitter. So a lot of setters, when they're going to set behind them, they either the arch in their back kind of gives it away, or people who jump set, they might do something specific with their feet. So their feet might come forward and then they throw their arms back. So that's kind of a tell. Obviously, the more talented setters are a lot harder to read, obviously. But I think for us, we just focus on what their hands are doing and their body language, and also where the pass is. Because where the pass is, and if the setter has to move 5 or 10 feet off, that can also kind of help you as a middle blocker be able to read where she's going to set.
So if you're not able to read the pass or read the setter, and your first movement is where you see the ball actually leave the setter's hands, it's too late at that point. Or at least you try to get there. But
yeah, you can definitely try to get there. I mean, you're not going to read perfect every time. That's something that, no matter how much volleyball you play or how old you are, that's something that you can never be perfect at. So you just strive to be as close as you can. And like I said, if you don't read perfect, you just have to make a last-minute recovery move and hope for the best.
And how much of this is involved with scouting? Looking at film ahead of time.
Yeah, we do a lot of film watching in our program in particularly, and then we'll do usually a separate session for middles just to focus on the setter specifically, so that way you can identify, like I said, a setter's body language or certain tells if she's going to set to a certain direction.
Okay, and we do have a good question from Katie Poole. If you could do one thing from the last 4 years differently, what would it be?
One thing differently, yeah, this is hard. Honestly, I think it would be focusing on things outside of volleyball. So sleep. I didn't get a lot of good sleep like my first 2 years of college. I guess I just didn't feel as if that was super important. And then things like diet and nutrition, our athletic department has done an amazing job within the past couple years of really implementing resources for us to use to focus more on diet and nutrition, and I think that has shown a lot for our team specifically, but as our athletic department as a whole, that's something that we're all starting to take a lot more seriously.
Cool. Once again, we're here with Kaz Brown, former middle blocker at the University of Kentucky. So we talked a little bit about blocking. Now, you're more than just a blocker. Even though middle blocker is technically in the title, you also do a lot of hitting. Talk a little bit about that setter-hitter relationship. You played with All-American setters. So are you able to kind of dig a little bit deeper into what that relationship is like?
Yeah, the setter-hitter connection is extremely important, especially for a middle hitter who hits a quicker tempo ball most of the time. So for me personally, I think it was just getting extra reps with all of my setters, lots of communication. So whether it's a good set or whether we need to, make it higher, make it faster, whatever that may be. But that's something, once again, it takes a lot of time. I was pretty frustrated with myself early on in the season because I didn't feel that me and Madison had a really good connection. But obviously, towards the middle, towards the end, it was clear that we had spent a lot of time on it. So I think taking the time and making sure you're communicating with your setter is probably the most two important things you can do as a middle hitter.
I mean, it's got to be tough too. I mean, I'm seeing in all college, not just Division I, a lot of freshman setters coming in, which I feel like is you used to not see that as much.
Right.
Is it challenging? You're a senior. Madison comes in as a freshman. She did a great job. You said you struggled early on to develop that connection. Do you think that was because she was a freshman and maybe you all had to kind of not show her what to do? She's fully capable of doing what she was able to do, but fostering that relationship because she was just so new.
Yeah, Madison is amazing. I think once a lot of people saw her play for the first time, they probably wouldn't have assumed that she was a freshman just because of the way she carries herself and how fundamentally sound she is. But like I said, it was just time for me and Madison. We just needed to spend more time together to get our connection stronger, and I think that showed, and we were able to focus more on that throughout practices and scrimmages and early season games.
How important is it to have that connection? We talk about it, I guess, on the court, being able to read each other, but how important is this connection to have with your setter, just to know her personally, just off the court?
I think it's really important. This season our team was really close on and off the court, and I think that's something that fans could probably see, especially during our tournament run. To go down 0-2 twice in the tournament at home obviously is kind of a scary situation, but we were able to pull ourselves out of it, and I think that's a testament to how much time we spent with each other on and off the court. When you're able to trust your teammates and have fun with your teammates, it can make situations like that not so stressful.
Does that just happen organically, or do you have to be intentional about creating these great relationships with your teammates?
I think you definitely have to be intentional. I know for me it was hard because, like you said, I'm a senior, and then we had multiple freshmen playing, so obviously our schedules are really different, our priorities maybe are different, but I think you have to take time to get outside of your comfort zone, maybe spend time with people who are younger than you or people you wouldn't necessarily hang out with on your team, just so you can form those connections.
Now, you've had a lot of really good matches. Obviously, you don't get at least, you're not ABCL region 3 times without having good matches. How do you know it, and how early on in a match do you feel like, I've got it today? This is my kind of match? Or does it not even hit you until after, and maybe you're looking at the box and you're like, wow, I got that many kills?
I think I don't know, for me, I like to get one thing going first. So if I get really hot on offense, I'll just try and get that going, and then hopefully that'll turn over to my defense or vice versa. So for me, it just comes with focusing on one thing before another. So if there's one hitter on the other team that I know I want to stop, or someone that leads their team in kills, or someone I know that if I slow them down, we're going to have a better chance at winning the game, I'll focus on that. Or if I know, okay, their left side blocker is really weak, so I need to get going behind the setter more, that's something I'll try and focus on. So I think just taking the game one step at a time and then hoping that one aspect of my game leads to another.
Now, we talked a little bit about film and scouting your opponents. How much of that is, you're using the scouting report, but sometimes when you get on the court, you're like, okay, not that you're tossing it aside, but you're like, okay, on the fly, we're changing it. I thought I was going to be doing this, but it turns out I'm feeling something else.
Yeah, I think that happened to us a lot. We would scout someone, we would have the game plan perfectly, and then they sub someone else in, and they have the game of their life. I think that's the UKVB curse maybe, but our coaches do a really good job of making sure we know the scouting report, but we're not overly focused on it, because like you said, you could have a game plan drawn up perfectly and they do something different on the other side of the net, and then you're forced to react. So I think we do a good job of finding the balance of knowing the other teams, identifying their strengths and weaknesses, but then again also just letting the game come to us, which I think is something that's really important, because if you over scout and then something goes wrong, then you can kind of feel lost or out of place.
All right, we have another good question for you on Facebook here from Amy Kaplan-Johnson. For aspiring college volleyball players, what is one piece of advice you can give them to prepare for college volleyball and college academics?
My biggest thing I would say is getting a schedule down, especially in high school, because in college everything you do it's a strict schedule. So workouts, class, practice, study hall, eating, trying to maintain having a social life and having friends and talking to your family, whether you're far away from home or close to home. So I think the earlier you can kind of get yourself in a schedule, even if it's in high school or club or, just kind of finding your routine, what works for you, and trying to maintain all of those things.
Yeah, because once you get to college, you have no choice. You have to be. I mean, there's
exactly.
You don't have that kind of flexibility.
Exactly.
And especially from what I've seen, there are a lot of really naturally smart people that don't need to study and they get A's and everything.
Right.
Well, in college, it's a little more difficult to get by that way. So you have to be intentional about creating that schedule.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So once again, we're here with Kaz Brown, former middle blocker at the University of Kentucky. Thank you, Kaz, for joining us here. I'm David Portney. I'm the Director of Marketing Communications at the American Volleyball Coaches Association. We're so pleased that Kaz can join us here. So we've been talking a little bit about your playing career, but there are a lot of different elements that are about that and around it. On the emotional side and the psychological side, we all experience in our everyday lives some level of self-doubt. But I feel like as an athlete, it's more tangible because you can see with your eyes outcomes that are maybe more difficult to see in other places. How did you manage any moments that you have had some self-doubt?
For me, I think my biggest thing was just having a solid confidence within yourself. So by nature, I think I'm a pretty confident person. So for me, when I came in freshman year and I started right away, that was something I was really proud of for myself. But then there was a streak of games where I just didn't play at all. There was like 5 or 6 games where I just didn't play. Coaches thought that it would be better for someone else to come in that was going to help the team. So that was really challenging for me because that was kind of the first time in my career where I wasn't a starter and my spot wasn't just there for me. So kind of that's a place for me where I had to find this self-confidence that I pride myself on. So figuring out what I'm good at, how can I be the best possible teammate? I'm assuming a new role where I'm not, the ball isn't going to me all the time. Other teams aren't focusing on me all the time. I'm not on the court. So how do I help my teammates? How do I get better in that situation? So I think for me, managing the self-doubt is kind of finding this authentic self-confidence, because once you have that within yourself, other people are going to see it. Other people are going to start believing in you because you believe in yourself. And then you'll get more opportunities that way.
Yeah, because almost every college volleyball player was their best player in high school or their club or one of the best. So then they get to college and now they're not even starting or maybe not even playing.
Right.
And so as you went through, that can be difficult for some players.
Definitely. And I think just kind of, for me, like I said, walking into that new role, okay, how do I help this team? Because obviously I served a new role on my college team as a freshman than I did my club team, where, I was supposed to be leading the team in blocks and kills, and I was supposed to be, kind of the number one option. But here, I'm not the number one option. So what ways can I still help my team? Which ways can I still make an impact?
So everyone goes through self-doubt. Now, the good side of it is we also experience success in some ways. So is there a way to, you don't want to get too high, right? How do you manage, if you have a string of matches where you're just on fire and you're dominant, how does that change your preparation? Does anything change at all?
For me, I don't think anything really changes. I've been really fortunate at Kentucky to play with some of the best players, in my opinion, in the country. So between Leah and Madison and Ashley this year, they are extremely talented. They're extremely successful. They got lots of national recognition. So for me, some days I'm not even like the best player on the team, on the court. So I think being surrounded by successful athletes like them helped me a lot. And also, like you said, not letting the highs get too highs or the lows get too lows. So for me, if I'm having a good game and we're not winning, then I'm not pleased. So for the past few seasons, I've had lots of success personally, but we would lose in the second round. We would lose in the first round. We get upset by teams we're not supposed to. We didn't win SEC championships. So I think once you place an emphasis on team success rather than your own success, you kind of find your balance that way. So my freshman, sophomore, junior year, where I had been getting incrementally better, I still wasn't happy because the team wasn't where I wanted it to be. So I think once you focus and buy into your team's success rather than your own, you'll be able to kind of find a happy medium of being happy for yourself and being proud of yourself for accomplishing things, but also feeling good about how you're able to help your team.
When were you able to do that? I mean, it sounds like it's easier said than done to kind of have that attitude. Was it not until your senior year, freshman year, or when you able to have that?
I think I realized it my sophomore year when I had become more of a bigger role on offense. So my sophomore year, I had to take more of a responsibility from the offense end rather than defensive end. So, like I said, and that was the year that for us was really disappointing to lose in the tournament so early. But then it also gave me motivation personally to say, okay, I'm doing what I need to do, but I need to do more for my teammates. So what do I need to do in the summer? What do I need to do from a diet standpoint? What do I need to do from a sleeping standpoint to make sure that I'm not just having success, but we're having success as a program?
All right, so what's next for you?
So I've signed with Elite Volleyball Agency, and I'm really excited about that. So right now we're just kind of in the process of hoping to find me a team to go play pro overseas.
So you officially graduated last month?
I graduated in December.
Okay.
Yeah. So I finished in December.
And what was your degree?
My degree was in communications and journalism.
All right, perfect. That's why you're sitting next to me. Okay, so once again we're here with Kaz Brown, former middle blocker at the University of Kentucky. Once again, if you have any questions for Kaz, leave them in the comments. We already got to a couple so far in this video, so we'll be browsing them and seeing if we'll answer a few more during this broadcast. So recently you were a player on Team Dream, which is the USA Volleyball Women's Open. They have, it was in Texas, right?
Yep, Dallas.
Okay, so it was, how many teams were there? There must have been, a lot. I don't know the numbers.
In the open division, there was only 5. Overall, because there was like 4 or 5 divisions you could be in, so open is the highest, most competitive level, so there was only 5 in that division. But overall, I have no idea.
Okay, yeah, there were a lot.
There was a lot, yeah.
We'll leave it at that. But in case you didn't see it, they were, I think they said the first all African-American or mixed race team to compete in this tournament, or at the very least the first one to win the gold. So talk a little bit about how you got involved with that. I know Haley Ackerman is a fellow Iowan. I don't know,
yes.
Is that the right term for it? Okay,
sure.
So talk a little bit about how you got involved with the team.
Yeah, so Haley and I have known each other probably since, I would think I was 12 maybe the first time I met Haley, and she's a huge part of the reason I started playing volleyball and playing club and taking the sport so seriously. So Haley's like a big sister to me, and her and Kat Bell were actually the ones who kind of came up with the idea for this team. So they knew that they wanted a team to compete in nationals in the open division, and they started brainstorming, coming up with players, and they were like, okay, well, what if we have an all-black team? I think that's something, they kind of came up with that vision, and they knew how important that would be for girls all over the country watching, and how important that is for representation in our sport. So they were kind of the ones that facilitated the whole thing. They got the team together, they took care of uniforms and all of that stuff. So Haley and Kat are kind of the ones who made that whole thing happen.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the roster, like All-American.
Yeah.
I mean, just up and down the roster, I think we counted it, there were a lot of different, the talent on that roster was probably intimidating to the opponents. But I don't think I've seen a team have as much fun. I mean, just on Twitter and just seeing everyone dancing and celebrating, just it looked like you guys were having a blast.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I mean, we only had one practice before the tournament started. We had like 1 hour and a half practice. Yeah. Like, you're just trying to learn everybody's names at that point. So I think for us to go out and win the whole thing, like you said, it's a big testament to how much talent we had on that team. And we just enjoyed each other's presence so much, just playing with each other. We had a lot of fun. We made sure that we were taking it serious, but also embracing the opportunity that we had, and embracing kind of the media attention that we got to show each other, to show everyone that, we can do this is possible, and we're going to have fun while we're doing it.
Were you surprised by how much coverage the team got?
I was actually surprised. I wasn't expecting that much, but I was really happy also, because this is something that's really important to me. It's really important to all of us, kind of as an underrepresented group in this sport of volleyball. It was important to us, and we're very thankful for everyone who did, give us attention or write articles or repost, retweet, stuff like that.
where does winning the gold rank among your career volleyball accomplishments?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, that's a hard one. It's up there. Obviously, winning the SEC was huge for me this year. Playing in the Elite Eight was huge. But this one, it's right up there with those things. I think I'm just really proud of it. More of the message that was able to be sent rather than winning the whole thing, but just the fact that we were able to create this team and to give young girls a group of people to look up to.
So just some stats here. I was on the NCAA website yesterday looking at some of these numbers. In 2016 and 2017, that's the most recent study from the NCAA, about 11% of NCAA women's volleyball players were African American, and 16% represent the combined total of the other minority groups. Just for some comparison and some context, 2007 to 2008, so almost a decade ago, the African American total was just under 10%, with an additional 10% for the other minority groups. So a slight increase on the African American, just 1%, a fairly significant increase on the other. That includes all minority groups, so you can break it up as you wish. But you mentioned it's important to you to have, to be a role model and influence other girls that look like you, as you said. How important is that to have role models like that?
It's huge. And like I said, I was really fortunate growing up because I did have Haley. So Haley lived like 10 minutes down the street from me. Yeah, we played against each other in high school. And so for me, that was huge, especially growing up in an area where, the population isn't extremely diverse. So to have Haley was huge for me. It was, it was someone I could go to and talk to about things. And like I said, someone who looked like me, someone whose background and upbringing was similar to mine. And I think that's so huge. And people also I don't think people value it as much as they should. And I think now it's becoming something that people are taking more focus on. So when we were in Dallas, we had lots of little girls come up to us and ask for pictures and watch us play. And I think, like I said, that was the goal of the whole thing. So we went out there, we had fun, regardless of whether we won the whole thing or not. We gave these girls and these players someone to look up to, and someone they could watch a team where there's every position, there's a girl who looks like them or someone who makes them feel really comfortable or feel like, hey, I can do this because she's doing this.
So you said you kind of had Haley.
Right.
She's not that much older than you, right?
Yeah. I think she's like 4 or 5 years older than me. Yeah. So we played each other once in high school. So she was a senior when I was a freshman. So yeah, 4 years.
So you said there weren't a lot of people that looked like you in your community and that you played volleyball in.
Yeah.
So what kind of difficulties maybe do people not realize growing up in that kind of environment?
I think for me, just growing up as a mixed race person, so my mom is white and my dad is black, so I think kind of for me personally, obviously I can't speak for everyone, but for me personally, I think I was really fortunate to grow up in a household where I didn't feel like I had to compromise my identity or identify with one side more than the other. My parents were really open. We had conversations about topics like this. So I was more focused on, how am I going to get to college? What am I going to do to get to college? And I knew that sports was probably going to be my most accessible route. So that was something I could more focus on. But I know that there's a lot of girls out there who don't have someone like Haley, like the way I did, to look up to or to talk to or ask questions or just say, she's doing it, so I feel like I can now. But like I said, my upbringing, I'm really lucky to have the family that I did and the parents that I did who kind of didn't make it about that, but just made it kind of more about me as a person.
So what sort of ideas, I don't know if you've thought about this before, but ways that we can do a better job as a volleyball community of making volleyball more accessible to minorities?
So I think the biggest thing is just the areas in which volleyball are really popular. So in lower socioeconomic communities where volleyball isn't as accessible, I think, so brainstorming ways, okay, how do we get volleyballs or volleyball nets to this community, whether it be donating to lower income schools with larger minority populations, or, I think just hiring more minorities, whether it be as coaches or managers or trainers, anybody on staff. I think that's really important. So like for me at Kentucky, when I went on a visit and I saw that there was for African American girls on the team, that was huge for me, because it's like, okay, I know that there's people here that I can relate to or talk to about certain things that I may not be able to talk to about with other people. So I think just having someone that you can relate to is a big thing. But I think the biggest thing, like I said earlier, was getting volleyball to these communities where it may not be. So a lot of kids, it's really easy. I mean, anywhere you go, there's a basketball court. So whether you're in inner city New York or somewhere, you know, in a playground in the middle of, in Kentucky or Iowa, there's always going to be a basketball court. There's always going to be a basketball hoop. That's something that's really easy to access. But volleyball is not so much, and it's not so common in those areas. So I think, you know, just spreading knowledge of the game, maybe doing like satellite camps in those areas, having people go talk to kids about the sport, just overall growing the game and spreading knowledge about it throughout the country.
So it sounds like, you know, if I'm hearing you correctly, you know, kind of what we were talking about before was being intentional about it.
Absolutely.
Not just doing it if it happens to be convenient at the moment, but making a plan, a financial commitment, time commitment to do these things.
Right. And it's something, like you said, being intentional. So we have to brainstorm and create ways. So, okay, how are we going to do this? Whether it be if we've got old volleyballs and we send them to a school where we know that, or to a community where we know volleyball isn't as prevalent, or, you know, we have people go do camps and, you know, just things like that. Just, I think spreading knowledge of the game is the biggest thing.
So in your position, you know, do you feel like you have a greater sense of responsibility to speak about these issues?
Definitely. I think for me, so I think about my little sister a lot. My younger sister, she's going to be 16 in August. So
she play volleyball?
She does.
Okay.
Yeah, she does. So I think when thinking about her, my biggest thing was, okay, so I had to be a role model to her growing up, and then I got here and realized, okay, I kind of have a greater sense of responsibility because I have these little girls coming up to me and asking for pictures and asking for autographs and things like that. So I think just being more conscious of that, being more conscious of my impact, and like I said, what things can I do in my own community to make sure that volleyball is growing and people are knowledgeable about it. But I do feel responsible for sure.
So, I mean, do you think, you know, programs could be doing, you know, a better job of involving their athletes, maybe their minority athletes, and being more intentional about, you know, their influence that you may have in your own communities?
Yeah, and I think
I guess my question is, and then it kind of left it vague, is, you know, do players need to take that responsibility upon themselves, or is it something maybe they say, well, if the program wants to do something, I'll get involved with?
I think it kind of just depends person to person. So if it's not something that you're personally passionate about, then I don't think you should throw yourself into it if it's not something that you deeply care about. Like I said, for all of the participants of Team Dream, that was something that we all were kind of on board with. We were really excited about it. We were excited to represent an underrepresented group. We were excited to be role models and to take pictures and talk to kids and, you know, just think of ways that we can create more opportunities in these communities. So I think it's just on a personal level, and it could just be even something small. Like we don't need to start this huge movement, you know, out of nowhere. I think it just depends person to person, and if everybody does their part, no matter how big or how small, I think we're going to continue to grow.
So obviously the issues of greater minority participation is only because we want to more positively impact minorities. It's because it lifts everyone up.
Absolutely.
It's not only about lifting a specific group up. So for non-minorities who want to help in this cause, what advice would you give them? Especially, let's kind of stick on the player route. So let's say white teammates or something.
Yeah, I think something that we were able to do within our team this year, with kind of in the midst of everything that was going on, especially within, we're seeing a lot of stuff with pro athletes. So as a team, we're able to have a conversation and just say, you know, hey, you may view this way, but let me explain it to you as a person of color. Let me explain it to you, and so you kind of know how I'm feeling, and maybe you can sympathize with me or understand why you and I feel so differently about this, or why I'm more passionate about this, or why this is something that I want to have a conversation about. So I think the biggest thing is just having a conversation and trying to understand where other people are coming from, because obviously when you get to college, everyone has a different background, a different upbringing, you know, grew up in different areas. So I think just trying to understand someone who is different from you would be the number one thing.
Well, especially in college, you know, in high school, everyone grows up in the same community, so they probably have very similar experiences or point of views on these
Right.
things. But when you go to college, especially a Division I school, where maybe their players are from all over, it's probably even more important to have those kinds of conversations.
Yes, and I think just having a conversation and I think the most important part about having the conversation is not having an end goal. So don't just say, let's talk for 20 minutes, and then at the end of it, everyone's going to feel the same way and we're all going to agree. But let's say, let's have this conversation. Everyone can share their viewpoints. If you leave about it feeling the exact same way, then that's fine. If you leave about it feeling even slightly differently, that's okay too. But I think just being open, and like I said, that's something our team did this year. We were able to talk about topics that had to do with race and that had to do with what's going on in the media with professional athletes. And I think that was something that helped us a lot, and it helped me just as a person of color expressing myself, and then my teammates were able to be more understanding of, okay, I now understand why she feels this way or why she's passionate about this.
Right, and so as you said, it's in the news now, it's still commonplace in this conversation. So your advice, it might be awkward, right, for someone to try to want to talk about this, especially in summer and people are just trying to get to know each other, maybe new freshmen and that kind of thing. So what you're saying, if I'm hearing correctly, is it will better serve the team by talking about it instead of avoiding it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think as athletes, especially in this day and age, with social media and with all the attention we're getting, and like I said, our sport is growing, so I think it is important to think about these things and have an opinion and have a stance. And whether you agree with your teammates or not, or you agree with your coaches or not, you need to reflect on these topics and understand what is going on in the world, and just do your part as a civilian to kind of understand and make sure you are educated about these things.
So I think I wasn't keeping an official tally on your responses, but you must have said the word understand a million times.
Right.
And you said the word convincing once, but not in that direct way of trying to say you should convince someone. So I think that's an interesting point where, these conversations, and you can fill me in because I wasn't at any of them, but it's not about you or someone else trying to convince you or you trying to convince someone that you're right. It's just that you need to understand where I'm coming from. And from there, as you said, maybe it's better to not have necessarily a goal other than just hearing each other out.
Right. I think, hearing each other out is definitely the most important thing. And it was really beneficial for our team. Like I said, we were able to get different viewpoints and different opinions, and we were able to come together and say, okay, now I get it. Now I understand why you think this way, or I understand how your background would lead you to feel this way about this topic. And, I think that's something that more teams need to do. And I think it is uncomfortable, and it's not always fun. It's not always pleasant, but you have to have those conversations. And I think, like I said, athletes nowadays have a responsibility, and everybody doesn't like that, everybody doesn't appreciate that, but that's kind of the world we live in.
Did those conversations happen organically, or just as the news cycle, I guess, makes its way through? Is that how it really inspires these conversations, or was it like, all right, 3 p.m. tomorrow, we're gonna talk about it?
Yeah. So how it really happened was there was lots of things going on kind of in the news media at that time. And so our coaches were aware that some of us were really passionate about these things and kind of wanted to share our opinions on these things. So they said, all right, let's have a team meeting. This is kind of going to be the context of the meeting. Anybody can share at any time. We're not going to interrupt each other. We're not going to debate or argue. We're just going to share our viewpoints and, hope that in the end that people can gain a greater understanding of what everyone else is going through.
You referenced social media, and I know you use that a lot, and a lot of players, and we use it a lot too, and it's kind of become prevalent in all of our lives. Talk about how social media use can help.
So for us personally, obviously attending the University of Kentucky, it's a big basketball school. So one thing that me and my teammates like to do is we will post on game day. So just say, hey, tonight, Memorial Coliseum, 7 p.m., we're taking on Florida, come support. So that's a way for us kind of like marketing in a sense of let's get more people to our games. How do we get more people to our games? All right, so if we've got a following on social media, we know that it's lots of students or lots of fans. Let's promote our games and try and get them to Memorial to watch. So that's one thing that's helped me a lot. And I think that's helped our attendance a lot because our team is pretty good about it. And our media department does an amazing job, and so does our marketing department of getting the word out there. Also for me, social media has been a really good outlet for people to get to know me better. So if you see me playing on the court, you might have an opinion of me, or you might like me or dislike me, but if you go look at my Twitter or go look at my Instagram, you get kind of a behind the scenes look. So everything's not just volleyball school. Like, we try and have a good balance of, you know, supporting other athletes in our school, or having a social life, or traveling, or doing the things we can. And I think for people to get a better look at us, it also helps understand, like, yes, they're athletes, yes, they're competing at the highest level, but they're also kids, you know. They're also, and I know that a lot of more high-profile athletes will get kind of, you know, negative stuff on Twitter or Instagram or trolls or whatever, but at the end of the day, we're kids, we're in college, we're playing sports because we love it.
So that's kind of, you hinted on the downside of social media,
right.
Trolls, and you know, how do you respond or don't respond, or what's your kind of philosophy if people are sending you stuff that is just trollish?
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. I haven't had too many negative encounters on social media. So like I said, I don't get too many. So if I do get one rare one, I just won't respond, because people like that usually aren't worth it. So, but I mean, obviously everyone is different. So I've had some friends who have been basketball or football players that get more stuff like that. And sometimes they will respond, sometimes they won't. But I think the best thing you can do is just try and focus on the positive aspects of social media, because I think, especially in today's society, it's become a trend to just show all of the bad rather than all of the good that's going on, because the bad stuff is what sells. So I think if we try and feed more into the positive aspects of social media and the positive aspects of the news and the positive aspects of what's going on in our world, it'll make the negative stuff kind of not seem as prevalent.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, it's almost human nature to only see the negative ones. And
right.
You block out the positive ones. Great job, congratulations.
Right.
Put those off to the side.
Yeah.
Let's look at these that are negative, and sometimes there's an impulse to kind of respond. But you know, you said you're friendly with a lot of other athletes who maybe get more, and it's difficult. But I guess the media department at UK, do they help at all with any kind of training and how to
so every team goes through, at the beginning of the season, goes through kind of like a media literacy course almost. So just kind of how to carry yourself on social media, what you want your social media to look like, how important it is, you know, that even if you delete something, it's still, I mean, someone could have got a screenshot. Right. None of that stuff ever actually gets deleted. So I think we do a really good job within our athletic department of making sure that people are putting their best foot forward on social media and representing themselves in a professional way.
Yeah, and we've even seen recently in other sports where after a player gets drafted or something like that, they'll say, "Oh my God, did you see what this person tweeted 5 years ago?"
Right.
It's like, and the person says, "Well, I've changed and I've matured," and that kind of thing. But it's, hey, those past posts can
that
come back.
Never goes away. Never goes away.
That's right. Well, once again, I'm here with Kaz Brown, former University of Kentucky middle blocker. If you have a question, now is the chance. We're starting to get towards the end here. Once again, comment on the comment section below, and we'll see if we can get to them. I know we briefly talked about your time in Iowa. So you went to Cedar Falls High School. Where in Iowa? I didn't write down what city that's in. Is that in Cedar?
It's in Cedar Falls.
Is it Cedar Falls? Some don't have different names. So Cedar Falls High School in Cedar Falls, Iowa. You played volleyball at Six Pack Volleyball Club, and you were an honor roll student. So how did that experience growing up in Iowa help shape you today?
It helped shape me in a lot of ways. I think one thing that really helped shape me was playing multiple sports throughout high school. So I didn't really go to a big high school. I mean, it's big in the state of Iowa, but on like a national scale, it's not really a big high school. There's like a little over 1,000 kids. So I was able to play 3 sports, and my club coaches were really understanding of that, and they were really supportive of that. So a lot of my club teammates actually ran track, played basketball, did softball, whatever. And I think that helped me a lot as an athlete. And I think that's something nowadays that people are kind of losing or not really understanding the value of being a multi-sport athlete. And that's something that all of my coaches have been extremely supportive of. So I'm really thankful for that. And I think my upbringing in Iowa also helped that, because it was a smaller school and I was able to do all of the things I wanted to throughout high school.
Okay, so we do have a couple of social media questions that we got from Instagram. One, has anything ever made you feel like you don't want to play volleyball anymore?
Yeah, I think there's definitely those periods of time where, I love volleyball, but there's days I definitely don't like it. Or there's days that the gym is the last place I want to be, or I don't want to practice, or I don't want to, do blocking moves, or I don't want to practice hitting. There's definitely those days that that's just not where you want to be, and you're not in the right headspace for it. So I think the biggest thing when you get to that point is remember why you started, or remember who you're doing it for. So like I have a little sister, and I know that she watches all my games and she looks up to me to a certain extent. So when I had those days, I just thought about her and being positive and being a good role model to her, or also think about all the people who would love to be in the position that you're in. So our team this year, I think we had like 16 people maybe. So that's 16 people that play Division I volleyball for the University of Kentucky. And I know that there's hundreds of thousands of people who would love to have that opportunity and love to stand, in my place. So do it because it's a great opportunity, and just, getting a chance to be active and play sports is a really great opportunity that I think that we sometimes take advantage of. So I think just kind of getting back to why did I start doing this in the first place, or who am I doing this for?
And a follow-up question to that would be, maybe you still have it today, but did you have a small circle, in those difficult times that you could talk to about certain things?
Yeah, so I have two older brothers that they were also college athletes. They played basketball. So there would be times I would talk to them about it, just to, whether it be venting or they make me laugh or just kind of lighten up the situation. You can go to your teammates about it. So if you, like when I was younger, I was close with some of the upperclassmen that I was able to go to and talk to them about it, or just, having a really good group of people, whether it be your friends or your family or your teammates, just to kind of talk it out. And, I think good people in your life will kind of minimize the situation, so just help you get back to remembering why you love the sport or why you do it in the first place.
And we did have another question on Instagram. Can you talk about your transition from high school and club to college? That's kind of vague, but like what was maybe something that you didn't realize that you had to make a big transition on?
Yeah, so I think for me, for my high school team and my club team, like I said, it was kind of, I was the number one option. I was responsible for kind of carrying the team from an offensive and defensive standpoint. So the biggest thing for me, I kind of touched on this earlier, was assuming a new role once I got to college. So how can I be the best teammate? How can I still make this team better, even though I don't feel like I'm making a big impact because I'm not scoring the most points or I'm not, the star player, but how do I make the people around me better? How do I make this program better? So I think that was the big thing for me. And then also coming to college, everything is fast. Like everything just speeds up times 10. Like I remember my very first practice, I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Like I was like, I am useless. I am not helpful at all. I don't know what's happening. So I think as much as you can try and slow it down, asking questions was a big thing. I think that's something I wish I would have done more of when I first got to college. Just asking, hey, how is this supposed to be done? Or what do we do in this situation? What do we do here? Just asking your teammates or your coaches or whoever else is on your staff. There's so many resources that you have as a college athlete, and I don't think we take enough time to slow down and use them. So that's something I would definitely suggest to anyone who's going to college, just as a student or as an athlete. Like there are so many resources and there are so many people who are willing to help you as long as you're willing to ask for the help.
Okay, ask questions. I think that's probably true in most walks of life. If you don't know, just ask. All right, so before we wrap up, we have to do kind of something on the lighter side. A lightning round, just a few quick questions here. First thing that comes to mind, you did not see these ahead of time.
No.
All right, the funniest teammate you've ever had?
The funniest teammate I've ever had? That's probably a toss-up between Jackie Napper and Kylie Schmaltz.
Okay. Your most embarrassing moment on the court?
Oh, geez. Okay, so one time we were playing at Texas A&M. This was my sophomore year, I think. That might have been the year that A&M was won the SECs our shared it with Florida. So I went up to hit a slide, which is off 1 foot behind the setter, and I came down and like I just didn't land on my feet. Like I just like my feet slipped from up under me, and I just like hit the ground so hard. And it was more embarrassing because I wasn't hurt. The only thing that was hurt was my pride. So I had to get up and keep going. Like I couldn't fake an injury. I was completely fine. I just like wiped out and just had to get up. And we lost the point, which made it even worse.
And what we see in sports when it happens, usually the athlete kind of says, "Ooh, my
yeah,
hamstring."
I should have done that honestly, but I didn't. I was completely fine. I got back up and just had to, the pride was the only thing that was hurt in that case.
All right, your biggest volleyball regret?
My biggest volleyball regret.
Do one thing differently.
I don't know. Maybe not playing middle. I didn't really have a choice, but middle.
You're
I don't know.
good,
I love playing middle. It's like a love-hate situation. Like middle is like one of the harder positions. We're also always in people's way. Like you're always in the setter's way, or like the libero's way, or the outside's trying to transition and you're in their way. But actually, no, I love playing middle. I take that back. I don't really think I have any regrets, but it's like a love-hate relationship with playing middle.
All right, if you couldn't be middle, what would you want to be?
A 6th rotation outside, but I cannot pass to save my life, so that's just out of the cards.
Could be an obstacle to being a 6th rotation
player. But if I would have done all of again, when I was
Yeah.
like little, someone could have taught me, but as of right now, it's out of the question. But 6th rotation outside is definitely the move.
LeBron James or Steph Curry?
Oh, LeBron, no contest.
Okay. Best dancer on Team Dream?
Best dancer.
Saw some moves on Twitter. You all were getting after it.
I will give that one to Erin Fairs. She's a Louisville player, former Louisville player, so I shouldn't give her any recognition because she's my rival. But I'm nice, and so I'll give that one to Erin.
Your biggest role model?
My biggest role model? Probably my brothers, my 2 older brothers. We're really close. They're like my best friends, and they're 2 of the best people I know. And they were a big part of the reason that I started playing sports in the first place. So I have to give them a lot of credit.
How many times a day do you get asked if you play basketball?
Man, I don't know. If I had $1 for every time I've been asked that question, I would not have to work another day in my life. It happens here a lot just because it's Lexington and it's a big basketball city, so it happens here more than anywhere else. But if I had to average out, maybe like 2 to 3. If I have to pick an average.
If you weren't going pro, what job would you want?
I'd like to go into sports broadcasting, ideally. So once I'm done playing, that's kind of the game plan. So going into commentating or reporting or whatever. I just want to do something with sports.
Okay. What's a better feeling, roofing a hitter or executing a perfect slide?
Probably getting the block. I think it's more exciting and it's more momentum changing and more momentum building. And I think our team gets way more excited for a block. So I'd have to go with that.
All right. Well, that'll do it. Kaz, thank you so much for joining
thank
us.
you
It's
for
a good
having
conversation
me.
to have. This video will be archived on our Facebook page, so if you have any more questions, just feel free to comment. Maybe we'll get to them. Once again, Kaz Brown, former middle blocker at the University of Kentucky. I'm David Portney, Director of Marketing and Communications at the AVCA. Thanks for joining us.